Great challenge! Need eliminate Meghan and Harry. King Charles must save the monarchy.
Eliminate Harry, Meghan, and Andrew. King Charles is under pressure to save the monarchy and only 50 days. King Charles III faces a huge challenge to improve royal image after the Queen's death. With the passing of Her Majesty the Queen, the new king must now find a way to steer the crown through its most dangerous chapter ever. Well, folks, it finally happened. After 25,781 days, 15 prime ministers and more than 30 corgis, Her Majesty the Queen has finally passed away at the ripe old age of 96. Today is a very important day in history, and now that's a phrase that people say pretty often, but this day it is tragically accurate, and you're gonna read a lot of stories out there about the Queen's incredible reign. When the Queen was born, nobody had any idea that one day she would be the Queen. See, when she was born, she was several rungs down the line of succession. She was a princess whose destiny was an aristocratic lie, filled with horses and weekend spent shooting, and who, by a strange turn of fate, ended up as one of modern history's, as well as the world's most adored and iconic figures ever. So Friday marks the beginning of the new royal family, one that is led by an untested king of middling popularity and a queen who was once known as Britain's most hated woman ever, a family that's been torn apart by a nasty fight and has also had to deal with allegations of sex abuse. No doubt about it, the Queen did help to shape the monarchy. She oversaw its transition from a Victorian holdover into a thriving institution that was focused on helping the people. She steered it through 7 decades of pretty remarkable change, but she leaves behind her family and the crown in a very shaky and precarious situation indeed. So for King Charles III, as a sovereign and as a father, the next 90 days are going to be one of the most tense periods in the history of the House of Windsor. You see, once we're officially out of mourning for the Queen, once the flags are flying back at full mast in Commonwealth countries such as Australia, the whispers of the Republican movement are going to become a lot more difficult to ignore. So most obviously we have to deal with the fact that the new head of state, the head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith and the head of the British Armed Services is a man who for a long time was simply not that popular. Sure, Prince Charles has dedicated himself to serve as his entire life, most notably to environmental causes, and he also established his mold-busting Prince's Trust charity. But still, when you look at his popularity ratings, it doesn't look good. The most recent polling that was done just before Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee celebrations back in June had Charles sitting at 56% favorability, and the Queen was actually sitting at an amazing 81% favorability rating. And for Camilla, bless her heart, things don't look any better. So her favorability ratings are below the 50% mark, at a decidedly lukewarm 48%. No. The two of them may have worked their butts off over the last 17 years, ever since they got married, and the new Queen consort has worked so hard on domestic violence issues, so there shouldn't be any doubt that the both of them are truly dedicated to public service. But still, the grudging respect they may have built up doesn't exactly translate into any kind of public support. Now, in the next several days, weeks, months, we might see that number go up a bit, but what we still cannot know is whether or not this is going to translate into longer-lasting support for the new ruling pair. And there's also the much bigger question surrounding the monarchy itself. So how could a hereditary monarchy, a system that relies on extraordinary privilege for just a few people who have simply won the genetic lottery, how is it going to fit into a world in which existing power structures and now facing some intense scrutiny? Without a doubt, support for the monarchy has been steadily falling. In May, 62% of UK citizens said they thought the country could continue with having a monarchy. That was down from 73% back in 2012. And if we look at the young people, the 18 to 24-year-old bracket, that figure falls to a 33% rating, with a nearly equal #31% saying that they think the UK should simply have an elected head of state. Only 56% of the Brits surveyed said they believe the institution was actually good for the country. That was a drop from 67% just a decade earlier. And this year's polling also discovered that only half of the respondents, 57%, were actually feeling proud of the monarchy. And what about for that youngest cohort? It was a worrying figure. Only 23% said they were proud of the monarchy. So now Charles has got to find a way to not only stop this erosion of support, but he also has to stop the reputational bleeding the House of Windsor has suffered recently. Do you see, the monarchy that Charles is inheriting today is one that has basically just survived over the last few years. They have certainly not thrived. Indeed, the last time that Buckingham Palace faced such a series of crises was when King Edward VIII decided that he would rather spend his life in exile than in the UK. And no doubt about it, the biggest crisis has been Prince Andrew's downfall. In November 2019, when he sat down with the BBC to finally answer some questions about his connection to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Soon after that, Andrew had no choice but to commit the royal equivalent of Harry, and he had to submit himself to a life without the sort of grasping bankers and the autocrats who had previously featured in his life. But unfortunately, the nasty stain left by this whole situation wasn't limited to the boundaries of Royal Lodge, of course. That's the Duke of York home. Instead, it spread to the palace itself. And still today there are questions that were never answered. Like, why was Andrew allowed to get away with spending so much time with such a sketchy person? Why did no one put a stop to it when he decided he was gonna spend multiple nights with Jeffrey Epstein in New York City? At that point, the financier had already been a convicted sex offender. It just doesn't make sense. And then when news about that little trip came out, why was Andrew protected by the Queen, with her swiftly making him a Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order? There have been plenty of scandals involving HRs over the years, but there is simply no equivalency to what Andrew did see. In 2021, Virginia Jeffrey filed a lawsuit against Andrew, and in New York court she said that he had sexually assaulted her on 3 separate occasions when she was only a teenager. Now he has humanely denied this claim, but still. Now in February 2022, Andrew settled with Virginia Jeffrey on a sum that we're not sure what it was, but the Telegraph reported that it was somewhere around $21.5 million, and Andrew settled because he did not want that civil case going to trial. And then, less than 2 short months after Andrew's disastrous interview, Harry and Meghan and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex quit royal life before they went on to define their post-palace life by taking regular, brutal, cheap shots at the firm. And people are still feeling the results of their choice to walk away from royal life. So what remains to be seen is, will it matter how hard Charles, the new Queen Consort, Camilla and William Catherine all work in the next few months and years, applying themselves to issues such as domestic violence, climate change and mental health? See, they have staked the future of the crown on that. But is it possibly going to be enough to protect the monarchy and to enable it not only survive, but thrive? Will they be able to do enough to keep the Commonwealth from falling apart, to wash away the bad taste that was left in our mouths after that horrible Andrew situation, as well as all of the vicious attacks they've suffered at the hands of the Suffixes? Heavy is the head that wears the crown, indeed. As the new King Charles has quite a big job ahead of him. But today he's the son who just lost his mommy, as he lovingly referred to her during the Jubilee. And for now, he's a son who is grieving. So I'll end with really the only appropriate thing I could end with: God save the Queen. And you, what do you think about this news today? Please tell me what you think below in the comments section, and we can also talk about your thoughts and feelings. If you think my video is helpful, please remember to like and share it.